perfect. And just as an example, I homemade this bread with this bread machine with the booklet they give you with all the different recipes, and this was my first time doing this recipe, and it turned out amazing, you guys. It's so good, and I barely had to do anything. The bread machine did it all. So when you get this bread machine, you'll also get a recipe booklet. Do not throw this out. It's not like a suggested, oh, these are some things you could do. Like, you want this because it tells you exactly how to use the machine, as well as the order in which you want to put the ingredients in and all that good stuff. So this is a page of the one I just showed you guys I made. It's a cinnamon swirl bread. And so as you can see, if you're wanting to make a small 1 pound, 1.5 pounds, or a large 2 pounds, I just did the small 1 pound. And so that's why mine was a little bit smaller. I also really like how they give you different sizes, because depending on how many people you're feeding, you can decide on which one to choose. And it's just my husband and I here, so we just chose the small one. So this is how most of the pages will look. They'll show you the ingredients for depending on how big you want it, and then show you some are optional and how to do it. And then it says, in a small bowl here, combine the granulated sugar and cinnamon, so these two up here. There's granulated sugar again in the recipe, but that's with the dough in the machine, so that's why I like how they list everything in order, exactly how you're supposed to do it, and the amount. They won't put the granulated sugar all in one row and show you the amount, so you get confused. They split it up. And then if you read all this, it usually tells you to put the remaining ingredients into the bread pan and in order that they're given. So like the milk, the butter, the egg, the salt, the sugar, the bread, flour, the yeast. You want to put those in order. And then the rest of it will kind of tell you what buttons to click on the bread machine so you're making the correct loaf, because this would be a white bread cycle, so you'd have to choose that. And so here's all the buttons. It may look a little confusing when you first look at it, but it really is simple, you guys. Once it's plugged in, you can click the loaf, and the page will tell you what kind of loaf you want. It'll show you like the 1 pound, the 1.5, or the 2 pound, or the light, medium, dark crust. So it'll show you how to do that, and it'll tell you exactly how to do that in the booklet. So it's really simple. And then if you ever just need to stop it and pause it or start it, you can always just do that on your own. Or there's also recipes that tell you to pause it, like mine did, because I had to add the cinnamon sugar mixture into the dough after it was kneaded. So I had to pause it for that and then put it back in and then start it again. I like how it gives you a little window, but you can always just open it. It never locks it, but I would always be careful because when it's baking it gets hot in here. But so here's what the bowl looks like. You can just pull this out. Pretty simple. And then it has this kneading paddle in it. This is the kneading paddle, but sometimes it tells you to take this out too, which is really easy. You just pull it right off. So the kneading paddle is usually for the beginning part of the process, and then you take it out for the baking part. And then the rest of the inside in here is just connected to the inside. It's what heats it up and all that good stuff. So then to just push your bucket back in, you just make sure it's lined up with the bottom part and these side things, and you just push it down and it clicks and it's in. And I love how it has this little handle because that makes it way easier to pull out when it's done or when you're needing to pause it and take the dough out. And I'll say usually the time, it takes a couple hours to fully finish the bread, but you barely do anything during the amount of time. All I had to do was put the mix into the bowl, and then I let it knead it, and that took like a half an hour or so. And then it told me to pause it because it does a sound, it like beeps. And then I took it out to put the sugar and cinnamon mixture on it, and then rolled it back up and put it into that pan again. And then I didn't have to touch it until it was done baking. It's just great, you guys, because this machine knows when to knead it, it knows when to bake it, and all that good stuff. If you see on this screen here, it'll show you the order it's doing things. So this is usually the order, but it'll have an arrow in here pointing to the thing that it's doing. So it'll be preheating, or it'll be kneading, or rising, or baking, or just warming. And so that's why I really love it, is because it tells you what it's doing, and it tells you on the screen how much longer it is. I think last night when I did the cinnamon bread, it was about a 3-hour process, but I didn't have to do anything. Most of that time, I think during the 3-hour process, the total of everything I did was 10 minutes, and that was it. And guys, this recipe book is not